Today, President Barack Obama and his Attorney General Eric Holder have been able to avoid much of the blame for the deadly failures of the ATF's controversial gun-running operation. But as new details continue to emerge, the spotlight of this scandal is beginning to shine the light on the highest levels of the United States government, including the Justice Department and the White House.
The American people deserve prompt and complete answers to the questions surrounding this operation.
Letting guns walk is not something that is acceptable.
This is one of the most shameful moments, I think, in our government's history.
This is one of the saddest days in my 6 months in Congress.
Special Agent Newell, what were you thinking? I think that's what we're all scratching our heads about.
This is the Mo Curley and Larry show, and we're looking for Larry.
Are they lying or are you lying?
There are far more questions than there are answers when it comes to who is responsible and who should be held accountable for the ATF's failed experiment known as Operation Fast and Furious. Not only does the Attorney General deny having any knowledge of this gun-running scheme, he denies the operation played any role in the deaths of federal agents Brian Terry and Jamie Zapata.
The notion that somehow or other this Justice Department is responsible for those deaths that you mentioned, that assertion is offensive. And I want to tell you that.
But what if it's accurate, Mr. Attorney General?
Eric Holder has a long history of scandalous decisions, of mismanagement, and of deadly decisions. I think that the people who put him in that appointment in the first place bear blame. They have to answer for their bad decisions because, look, with Eric Holder, the writing was on the wall. There was no question that you were going to get anything other than an obstructionist corruptocrat in office, and that's how he has run his agency.
Under Holder's direction, the Justice Department has ignored subpoenas and refused to turn over key documents to Congress throughout the investigation.
Sir, if you're going to count pages like this as discovery, you should be ashamed of yourself. The pages go on like this forever. You've given us black paper instead of white paper. How dare you make an opening statement? How dare you make an opening statement of cooperation? We've had to subpoena again and again.
Stonewalling is the Obama way. It certainly has been the Eric Holder way of dealing with this controversy. And that's why Republicans, whistleblowers, investigative journalists have to continue to push.
Who authorized this program that was so felony stupid that it got people killed?
The chairman of the House Oversight Committee, California Republican Darrell Issa, has been one of Eric Holder's most outspoken critics.
The Justice Department continues to withhold key information and has inappropriately interfered with this investigation. Let me be clear. The Justice Department is not our partner in this effort. They are the subject of this investigation. Their continued interference will not be allowed to derail the committee's work.
A House Oversight Committee report describes in great detail the type of interference being encountered by investigators. Quote, DOJ leadership denied allegations that gunwalking occurred in Fast and Furious by adopting an overly narrow definition of the term. They argue that gunwalking is limited to cases in which ATF itself supplied the guns directly.
It's no surprise that a former Clinton official is getting Clinton-esque about his alibis and his rationalizations for how this program got out of control. But it is certainly a case of parsing definitions and trying to weasel out of what the definition of is.
Now the question is whether or not Eric Holder's Clinton-like evasion will help him survive this scandal, just as his former boss did in the late 1990s.
There's a Teflon coating around so many of the top Obama officials. And I think the question is for the American people. Will you allow that coating to stand after you know what's going on with the scandal, after you know the hell that Brian Terry and his family had to go through? And when people decide in 2012 who they want running the White House, they will get to decide if they want somebody like President Obama who put Eric Holder in place.
But we may not need to wait until 2012 because now even the White House's knowledge of and involvement in Fast and Furious is being exposed. On July the 26th, for the very first time, ATF special agent in charge, Bill Newell, revealed that he had informed a top national security official at the White House about the operation back in September 2010.
Isn't it a little bit unusual for a special agent in charge of an ATF field division to have direct email contact with the national security staff at the White House?
He's a friend of mine.
How many times did you talk to him about this case?
The specifics of this case, I don't think I had one specific conversation with him about the specifics of his case.
Could you take the word specific out and answer the general? Did you talk to him about this case?
I might have talked to him about this case, yes, sir.
Now, Riley is the first aide to President Barack Obama to publicly be accused of having knowledge of this operation. But what remains unclear is whether or not he shared this information with anybody else inside the White House.
And coming up, one of the people most responsible for bringing all of this to the public's attention, that's Congressman Darrell Issa. He tells us one of the most shocking details. Coming up next.